I remember vividly in July 2010. So the nurse came in and she asked me to lie on a medical bed. And a couple of seconds later, my entire body was moving from one place to another, along a bright corridor. But deep down inside my heart, it was complete darkness. So as I was lying flat on my back, all I could see was the ceiling tiles moving past very, very quickly. And the fluorescent tube flashed by one after another. And a couple of seconds later, I was in the operating theater, and the nurse told me to lie down for a couple of minutes. And the next couple of minutes later, I was inside the operating theater itself. And doctors after doctors came in, asked for my name and for my IC number. And one nurse came in, and she started to explain to me the procedure of the surgery. But the first thing she told me is, I need to understand that in the next couple of moments, they're going to give me a mask. And she told me the moment I take a few deep breaths, I will fall asleep. And the moment I wake up, everything will be over. So I was lying there. One nurse came along and started to place small little pads across my body. And it was the first time in my life that I could hear my own heartbeats. And it goes something like, beep, 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 beep. And the next nurse came in and said, Mr. Chang, are you ready? I mean, what else can I do? She held a mask, and I could see the mask getting closer and closer and closer to my face. And then eventually, it was covering my nose and my mouth. And the nurse told me to take a couple of deep breaths. That was my first deep breath. And my eyes was getting dizzier and dizzier. It was my second deep breath. And right in front of me, the lights getting paler and paler. And after I took in my third deep breath, I saw the most beautiful picture right in front of me. Tears came down from the right side of my eyes. I raised up my right hand, and I reached out for this beautiful picture. And the next thing I know, it was complete darkness. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the next couple of minutes, in the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to share with you 3 stories, which is predominantly my life before and after my cancer. Now, way back in, this is the title of my first story, and my first story is What Makes a Hero. And my story dates way back into 1971 when I was born. And the moment I was born into a poor family, and my family is so poor that my mom wanted to sell me away in exchange for a couple of things. A dozen of eggs, 6 tins of condensed milk, and 2 big tins of Milo. So on the very first day that I was born, I roughly knew how much I was worth. So if I could speak, I'll probably ask my mom, why do you exchange me for all this stuff? So who do you want to pass this thing to? So of course, it's only when I grew up, then my mom told me she wanted all this stuff to feed these 3 people. And these 3 people are my eldest brother. Yeah, one elder brother is 7 years older than me, 8 years older than me, and 9 years older than me. But of course, during a time when my mom wanted to sell me away, both my parents had an argument. So my father told my mom that regardless how poor our family is, we don't sell our children away. So eventually, I stayed back, and I grew up to be a little kid. Now this photo, so along the way, our family was really humble, and one of my favorite dishes when I grew up was porridge. For some of you, you're like as old as my parents, huh? You know they feed me with this salted eggs. Does it look familiar? And this one, have you fermented tofu? Wow, you must be 2 generations above me. So I was fed with all this stuff, and then eventually I grew up to be a smart little boy. I was in primary school, and my father worked as a fishmonger. So as I was growing up, I witnessed how hard my father works. He wakes up like 3 a.m. in the morning, and by the time he finishes work, it will be 3 p.m. So every day is like 12 hours. So 365 days per year, 365 days per year. So every single day he'll be working. And because both my parents are uneducated, they trade their effort and labor for money. So this is how my mom looked like. This photo was taken when she was washing clothing in the toilet, and because we couldn't afford a washing machine, everything was all a hand wash. So even though life was simple, I was pretty happy. So it was a family of 6, and this is how our entire family looked like. And because we are poor, we couldn't really afford to travel overseas. So the nice places that we can go are usually free places. This photo was taken when I was in, give a guess, what place is this? A Botanic Garden. So this is how my father looked like. So in my mind, my father is a very cool person. Why? Because every single day when I go back home, usually he don't talk. So, yeah, so he will smoke, he'll drink coffee, and that's it. So in the earlier generation, I realized that usually all the father are usually very cool people. Huh? And this is one of my favorite photo because both my parents appears to be thinking about something. But until today, I do not know what they are thinking about. And occasionally, other than singlet, my father will be naked. So he considered that as pretty well dressed, yeah, at home. And my mom is really a very special person right inside my heart. She's the one that takes care of the family. So every single day he wake up and then cook and so on. And after every meal, what she will do is she'll cook all the very nice stuff, and she's usually the last person to take the dinner. So she'll feed all the boys, because there are 5 boys to take care of. So out of 5 boys, she will just sit quietly and then she'll just take care of herself. So life, everything was really fine until eventually I entered the National University of Singapore to be an undergraduate. So during my third year, my father passed away during my third year exam. So on the very first day of my exam, my father passed away because of a heart attack and a stroke. And I still remember very clearly, I was inside the examination hall and I was crying. And the professor came along, stood beside me and asked me what was going on. So it was very difficult for me to describe. But what I wanted was just to finish the paper very quickly and then that's it. Now, unfortunately, after my father passed away, a year later, my mom was diagnosed with terminal stage, a lung cancer. So I'm a biology student. I knew in theory what biology was like, but I don't really understand what it means for a loved one to be suffering from cancer. So that was the beginning, really a beginning of my life journey. And the oncologist was telling my mom, saying that she only have approximately 3 more months to live. And then during these 3 months, some more things took place. One of my eldest brother decided to file a lawsuit against my mom. So he was thinking that if my mom passed away, he would take possession of the entire house so they can sell the house away. So during that period, during 3 months when my mom was really wilting day after day, it was me, my mom, and this elder brother. So 3 of us, we are staying under the same roof, but a lawsuit was going on from one end to the other end. And that was also the first time that I experienced what it means that, a loved one could really choose money over a loved one. So, and the family broke up after this lawsuit, and things get really very complex. And what happened was, before my mom went to a state of coma, she told the entire family that the biggest dream was for the entire family to come back together again. So that was the biggest dream. And days move on. So when I look at my mom, if I could describe it, it's like a very nice, beautiful flower. And then eventually the rose petals goes from red to yellow, and then eventually to brown, and the petals will start dropping. And then eventually she went to a state of coma, and I could still remember on the very last day, it was during the Chinese New Year Eve. We were supposed to come back together and have a reunion dinner. And there was my mom lying on a medical bed provided by one of the hospice care in Singapore, and she was totally unconscious of what's going on. So myself, together with my brothers, we had our reunion dinner. And we went back to the living room. So my brother bent his body forward, and he whispered into the ears of my mom. And he said, "We just had our Chinese reunion dinner." And all of us looked at my mom. And we saw her final breath. And that was how I lost my mom. So what's the learning lesson that I have as a young man? Now, I've always loved like Marvel superheroes, but I realized that throughout the years, my mom was really a hero. And I describe a hero as someone who keeps going, as given his or her life for someone bigger than oneself. And throughout her entire life, she has always given her life for the family. So this is my first story. Now, after my mom passed away, my brother has no choice but to keep me in the house. So officially, in inverted commas, I was homeless. So I was searching for a place to stay. I owed the bank a huge debt because I borrowed money to study. But eventually, this is my second story, is defeat. So what I did is, after I graduated, I worked very hard because I need to pay off the loan. So I took a number of jobs, daytime a job, and then nighttime of a job. And then I worked in national parks. I give tuition to pay off the loan. And then along the way, I keep telling myself that if I really want to change the world, if I really want to inspire the world, I need to become somebody first. So it was during one of the seminars that I met up this guy called Robert G. Allen. Now, he's one of the famous international speakers, and he wrote this book. And during his session, I learned one key takeaway. The key takeaway is, if I really want to inspire the world, I have to be somebody, so that people take my word really seriously. So that marks the beginning of my aggressive working day and night. So in year 2000, that was also the first time that I wanted to become really somebody. So I took all my savings, which is approximately $50,000, and I invested in a lot of high-tech companies because I really wanted to be rich, wealthy, so that I can really share my stories. So what happened is I invested approximately $50K into technology companies, and in year 2001, the dot-com bubble burst. And when the dot-com bubble burst, I lost all my savings, which is around $50,000. And coincidentally, the $50,000 when I lost in year 2001 was supposed to be meant for my wedding. And it was just 3 weeks before my Chinese customary wedding. So there are two things I can do. The first thing is I can tell my girlfriend the truth. And I knew that if I tell my girlfriend the truth, then that's it. So that's choice number one. So what I did is I chose choice number two. Choice number two is I decided to call my brothers in my national service and then NUS or whatever to borrow money from them. So the moment they pick up the phone, I say, hey, I needed $50,000. So my question to you is this. If your friend calls you and wanted to borrow $50,000 from you, would you lend it to him? Yeah, so much for Singaporean. Okay, now. So all my friends obviously say no, but an interesting turn of event took place. Just a week before my Chinese customary wedding, suddenly an angel descended from heaven and decided to lend me this $50,000. And give a guess. Who do you think is this person? It's actually my girlfriend. Which is why I have no choice but to marry her. So eventually we got married. I went broke because of me and she went broke because of me. So even though we do not have money, but I managed to squeeze up some money to take some photos. Yeah, this one was taken in Tuas because it's free. And a couple of years later, my wife gave birth to my first girl, and she's really cute, and her name is called Chloe. And that was the first time that I really experienced what it means to be a parent myself. And I started working, so I call myself a workhorse. I worked so hard that my most recent company decided to give me an award called the Above and Beyond the Call of Duty. So a short is called ABCD Award. It was pretty cheap, it was just $20, but it makes me very happy. So in May 2008, what I did was I decided to leave my job to start my own company. And remember, my dream was really to be somebody. So after I left my job in May 2008, in October 2008, the economic crisis came, the Lehman Brothers and so on. Now as I reflect back, if I knew that the crisis would come, I wouldn't have quit. But no choice, there's no turning back. So I quit, and then 1 year it was very tough. I wanted to be a speaker, but nobody wanted to engage me. So for some strange unknown reason, somebody sent me an email, asked me to speak here. So I'm very... So I was given an award by the Minister of Manpower, and these are some of the things that I do. October 2008, crisis came. So I really love to speak. So the moment I'm on stage, I just felt that I'm somebody else. So these are some of the stuff that I do. I love children, and these are some of the small little milestones that I have. This is me, and there are like 800 people at the back. So this is me, there are 8,000 people at the back. So I love to open my mouth. Once my mouth opened, right, I couldn't stop. And sometimes when I travel to different parts of Asia, some people mistook me for Jack Ma. Are you able to see a similarity? Yeah. Okay. And I met up with Nick, Richard Branson, Mary Buffett, which is the ex-daughter-in-law of the third richest man in the world, Warren Buffett. And this is some of the media coverage that I have. And my peak of my career was somewhere in 2010, where everything was just right. So my key learning lesson was this. Now, all of us, we may encounter defeats, but we must never be defeated. But sometimes life goes something like this. When you're at the peak of some things, whether it's money, wealth, happiness, some things will take place. So let me share with you my third story. And my third story is about death. And there was once somewhere when I was doing a research, and there was a quote that was given by Steve Jobs, which goes something like this. Now, if you live each day as if it was the last, someday you'll most certainly be right. So what happened was in July 2010, when I was working in my office, and then I felt a very serious pain on my rights. And then the pain was so bad. The ambulance has to come and then eventually send me to the hospital. So I went to A&E in SGH. And then the moment I entered A&E in SGH, my life started to unfold very quickly. So I went through a scan, and then a couple of days later, I'm supposed to go for a specialist clinic. And I still remember in a specialist clinic, there were 2 doctors overseeing me. They used this ultrasound scan and was scanning my right. And they say most likely it's a kidney stone, which is why I felt the pain. But what they did was they scanned my left kidney. And one of the doctors told me, it's not the right kidney I'm worried about, it's my left. And they told me that they found a very huge tumor in my left kidney. So moving forward, they realized they found a tumor the size of my fist in my left kidney. That's almost the size of my entire left kidney. So I have no choice. The doctor recommended me to remove my entire left kidney. So right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm left with a scar which spans from my middle of my body to the side. So it's approximately 30 cm long. It's really long. So how do I know it's 30 cm long? Because when I was lying in hospital for 2 weeks, I have nothing better to do. So I went to measure. So that was how long the scar is. So this is a report that I've shown, highly suspicious for malignant tumor, for example, renal cell carcinoma. Now as I reflect back, I was still lucky because the tumor was stage 2. Now, if it's stage 4, then you'll be disastrous. So I was telling you, if one kidney is okay, I still have another one, you know. So it's really not that bad. So let me share with you how my scar looked like. Now, I continued my job, and during a time when I was diagnosed with cancer, before the surgery, I launched my first book, and all the donation was given to the Straits Times School Pocket Money Fund. And I'm proud to show you this scar. This is how my scar looked like. Maybe some of yours will be longer than mine. So this is, this. Can everybody say wow? Wow, okay, thank you. Now this is how long my scar looked like. Usually it's the stitches, but it was all in metal pieces. So it was really pretty bad. But what happened was my life goes on. My life goes on, I still continue my career. It took me a couple months to recover. So every 6 months, the routine is I'm supposed to go to a National Cancer Center to do my regular checkup. And then in my mind, at the back of my head, I was mentally prepared that something may happen, but yet, you know, the contradicting is I don't want it to happen. And it was one day I went inside the clinic, which was September 2014. So the oncologist looked at my CT scan, and he said, Mr. Chang, I have some news to tell you. You know, when he said there's some news to tell you, it's never a good news. Because for the past few years, there's no news. So he told me they found there are 2 tumors, somewhere in the place that they were operated. And my cycle starts all over again. So during a time when I had a tumor, I knew that maybe I need to go for some treatment, chemo, surgery, or whatsoever. But my mind was totally confused. And I keep telling myself, maybe it will be all right, it will be all right, it will be all right. And during the few weeks when I was waiting for the surgery to come, I didn't know whether was it stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and so on. Because the oncologist, I remember the oncologist was telling me that kidney cancer is a very difficult cancer to treat. And if the cancer cells spread, it will either go to the bone, the brain, or the lungs. And there's a chance that 95% of people will not survive. So I went for the surgery. After the surgery, they found that the original cell type comes from the cell type when I had it in 2010. So what does it mean? It simply means that the cells have spread since 2010 to 2014. And they classify that as a stage 4 cancer. So after the stage 4 cancer, I couldn't think properly. So I seen one oncologist after another. And after seeing a lot of oncologists, I realized that I can pass the same information to them, but 3 different doctors will say 3 different things. One live, one die, one is okay. So I managed to survive September 2014, 2 tumors. But let me so this is my 3rd learning lesson. My 3rd learning lesson is time is the only true unit of measure. It gives proof to existing of matter, so without time, we don't exist. So when I was healthy that time, I thought that I could live forever. I thought like I'm immortal. And I realized that when I strike lottery twice, one after another, I realized that time is really short. So like just now, one of the speakers was saying, when you're on the bicycle, it's very different. It's a very different feeling when you're standing outside and looking at somebody cycling. So I'm really sitting on a bicycle. So let me share with you my life right now. The oncologist has classified me as a high-risk patient. And one of the oncologists was telling me that there's a high chance that there's going to be a relapse. And if the relapse takes place, it's going to be less than 4 years. Yeah, so 2 years has passed. counting my days. So every 2 months, I'll go to the clinic and they will do all this stuff, you know. Yeah, it's quite painful, but it's not as bad as the surgery. So every 2 months, I'll go for a checkup. So it's like a judgment day. So before I enter the clinic, I just felt that the doctor is going to toss a coin, whether I live or die. So this is how I feel. So right now, as of today, the most important thing in my life is really my family. So as I look back, I think what I'm really grateful most is really I have time. This is my wife. This is the lady who lended me the $50,000. Of course, I didn't know when I buy one, I get two for free. So I have 2 kids. My elder girl is in primary 2. My younger one is in K1. I think the biggest difference I have before and after cancer is I'm very mindful of the small little things. That the food that I eat, you know, the grass that I see, the sky that I have. And I'm very mindful of the presence of every single one of you. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. And right now I committed my time to do as much as charity work as possible. So this is the second book that I've written. It's called The Book of Hope, and all sales proceeds goes to cancer research in National Cancer Center. So this is some article that is being featured. And I also started a charity investment fund with Singapore Management University, so where the money is being donated to students who cannot afford to study. So as much as they can, I want to do some charity work. And this is, now, turning back clock, I still wanted to speak, I still wanted to travel around the world. And maybe one day I'll really find the true purpose in life. And I was quite fortunate that I met Robert G. Allen a couple of months ago when I was in Japan. So right now, this will be my last second slide. I'm really grateful that I get a second chance to live again. And when I meant grateful, and I'm really grateful, even for a small cup of Milo and the soda pia, because in hospital for 7 days I couldn't eat, that really tastes very good. I took my third breath. Just a few seconds before darkness came into my mind. The most beautiful picture appeared in front of me. As the tears rolled down my cheek, I raised up my right hand and I reached out to the picture. And I saw the most beautiful picture in the entire world. And this is what I saw. So it took me a while to really figure out what is really the true meaning in life. And this is my final quote. Now, a man travels around the world in search of what he needs, and he returns home to find it. Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cayden. Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, even just watching, I had tears. You know, and I'm sure many of you in the audience felt that as well, because I think it speaks to us on so many levels. You know, either yourself have been through cancer or a family member has been through, and to hear your story. Sorry, I'm still tearing. I'm just going to open up. Does anyone has any question for Cayden? Oh, wiping tears at the moment. Anyone has any question? Or maybe from the... Oh, yes, the gentleman over there.
Yes, thank you very much for your story. It was very interesting. But what I want to ask you is, with all your experiences and from what you have narrated, you see, what is your best advice for somebody who goes to a doctor? Nowadays, when you visit the doctor, and if your tumor is malignant, they make it sound like as if you're having common cold.
Yeah.
But what happens is, the moment they tell you that, your heart freezes.
Yes, yes.
And you do not, there's no hospitality, they don't counsel you, or what, they just tell you point blank. And you get worried and you do not know what to do.
Yeah.
What is your best advice? What can we do? Can we go and seek for a second opinion? Or can we go for traditional medicine? You know, these are things that work in our mind, because some say chemo is bad, some say radiation is bad for your health. Now, what are you to do at that moment? I
Okay,
think you are the best person who can advise.
I can share from my story because I'm not a doctor, so I cannot say in front of medical things. Now, during in 2010, when the doctor revealed that I have cancer, I don't mind sharing with you that it's a very mechanical process. The doctor will say, hey, this is a CT scan, this is a tumor, and then it's like, wow, it's like as though I'm a robot. Yeah, but I'm not. So the moment he announced that there's a cancer, my mind simply went blank. I wasn't really paying attention to what he said. Because whatever he said no longer matters. So my mind just wandered off and said, am I going to die? Am I going to do this? So a lot of things was happening. So by the time my soul came back to the clinic, the doctor was saying, Mr. Chang, do you understand? I said, what are you talking about? Seriously, my mind just went blank. I said, I just need a moment of silence. And then the doctor was telling my wife, what I should do, but I wasn't paying attention. So I left the room. And when I left the room, my wife was saying, is there anything I want to do? You know what I told my wife? I said, I need to be left alone. So she left. And I left the SGH, and I don't know where I go. Now, that 12 hours, I think I went somewhere, but I couldn't, there was no memory. And eventually, when I went back home, my wife was in the living room waiting for me to come back. So, back to the question, I think it's most important for the loved one, touch wood, if there's someone who is going through this, it's most important for the loved one to be present. When I say present, it's really mind, body, and soul, not updating on Facebook or whatsoever. So it's really fully present. And when you're fully present, you do not have to give advice or whatever. You just need to be there, physically to be there, and then just waiting in case the patient say something, you just be there to listen. I think this is the most important thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm just sharing from a non-medical side. So what I really need is just the person to be there to listen to me.
Just physically.
Physically, emotionally.
Beside you.
Yeah, beside me.
Yes, thank you.
We've got a lady there with a question. Could just run the mic up to her.
Hi, just wondering, how do you prepare your children's journey with you?
Does your children know? How old are they now, your two girls?
My elder girl is in primary 2. My younger girl is K1.
Okay, so that would be 8 and 6. No, 8 and 5.
Okay.
8 and 5.
Okay, there are two things that I prepared. Okay, the first thing how I prepared is I wrote them a letter. I wrote a letter, and I saved this letter inside the book. So in other words, if you go to any bookstore, you buy a copy of a book. This is a sales pitch. You will see the letter inside.
My sales pitch bookstore also.
Yeah, it can be sold in Takashimaya and I'm just kidding, Kinokuniya and Times. So back to the book, I wrote them a message because I knew that they're too young to really understand what I've gone through. So I wrote them a very long letter. And I don't mind sharing with you, when I was typing that chapter, I was tearing. It was approximately 2+ a.m. in the midnight. I was in front of my computer, and that was the last chapter of my book. So my so-called preparation is to share with them how I felt at the point of time. All the message that I want to say is in the book. And perhaps one day when they grow up, they will read a copy. So this is one way. The other way is more like the process type. So what happened was in September 2014, I didn't know what's going to happen, whether I'm going to leave or not. And the night before my surgery, what I did was I took out a rough paper and I wrote down all the things that I have. So I asked my wife to come and sit beside me. And me and my wife were just sitting down in the living room. Our back was lying against the sofa. We were watching TV. And then I told my wife to shut off the TV. Then I told her I got something important to tell you. Then I write down in front of her. I say, these are all the possessions that I have. Then I pull out my ATM card. I write down the PIN number, everything. So I said, I've been working hard for this moment. And these are my entire fortune. So touch wood, if something happens to me, you can take the money, do something for family, or give the remaining to charity. So going back, I mean this is what I did. I don't mind sharing with you, I'm still worried because 2 years has passed, I'm still counting my days. But every single day, I really need to be happy. Yeah. Thank you.
We've got one more question from a gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. I am also Mr. Chang.
Cayden.
Now, I think we all appreciate your story, and you have really gone through a huge trauma.
Yeah.
And I too went through that, but mine compared to you is like a little pea.
Oh, no. Don't say that.
When I got my, mine is 211, when my doctor is really good. When I got it, my doctor said, don't worry, Mr. Chang. I guarantee you will live another 10 years. At that time, I was 80. Now I'm 85. So I live another 5 years already. So my doctor still owes me 5 years. I got a relapse on 2/15. But I have no question for you. But I actually admire your attitude and your kind of looking at life. I really, really admire you. You're my hero, man.
So it's back to story one. You have become our hero as how your mom has become for you. I think that's a great note to end the presentation. If there's no other questions for Cayden. Oh, from Dr. Chu. Dr. Chu's got a comment, a question.
I make a comment as an oncologist. I think what you experience is what I see in clinic every day. And I'm sorry to say that a lot of times when doctors say something, because we got only 15 minutes to finish the consult. So it's not that we don't want to be compassionate, but sometimes things have to move on because we've got so many patients. But what you say is, I never ever tell my patients, I just say you have cancer, I'm so sorry, I just stop. Because I don't go beyond that. This is the first moment, because you can come back for another consult, next day doesn't matter. But we need to stop and listen to the patient's emotions, because cancer is the worst disease you can ever have. When you say you got cancer, all your life just collapsed. And I think that's what happened to you also. It's just, whatever you worked so hard for, just totally disappeared. And you only think about your family member, what is going to happen to my family? What happened to me? Am I in pain? All that. The second thing that I want to say, that actually I have so many patients who actually have same situation as you. Last year I have a patient who have 2 years old and 4 years old. It's very difficult for the mom to say goodbye. And I asked her, is there anything else I can do for you? She didn't know what to do. I said that what you can do, I tell you what you can do, is that I want you to maybe to write down, or maybe I can make a video of you saying that what you ask your husband to tell your daughter when he's get married, when he's going to go for his graduation, say, Mom, Mom cannot be with you, but you can actually, this is what I would like. So actually she passed on already. So if you have something, if you have any, if you're a cancer patient yourself, or any caregivers, I think this video or letter, something meaningful you can leave on to the next generation, I think is very, very important. For that, you wrote a letter and the same thing I said. So I'm venturing on a project as part of the support group that actually we may actually do something more as a caring community to fulfill like what SCCs also have done, is that no one should actually die alone with the cancer being sad, but to have a meaningful of life, to have the last reunion, or thinking of maybe we come together, last reunion for the family. Not so, sometimes have to be in the hospital setting, And I say, listen, I look so ugly, cannot take photo of me. No, I got makeup artist for you, and then we can just have a group picture. This is a last portrait, because you cannot go out and get a last portrait. We do the last portrait in the hospital. So getting partners in, and I look to photographer and videographer, I say, can you please come and help us? And I want to do the last moments picture with my. So this is a dream project that I have. You can actually join me in the project, and something that we are going to hopefully engage for that to happen. So don't wait until the last moment, but wait for something very meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chu. And once again, thank you, Cayden. I hope you never stop talking, okay? Because when you tell people your stories, it is really an inspiration to us all.
Yeah.
All right?
Lucky you're inviting me down. Otherwise, I'll continue.
Thank you very much, Cayden. Thank you.